Yes.
I'm going live on YouTube first.
Okay. So I already see a lot of participants coming in.
Can you share the link of YouTube?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, everyone. We see Agnes, we see Audrey, Arman, Haryanto. Hi, everyone. Hi, Linda. Hi, Martin. Wow. Wow, that's a great attendance. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Okay. Okay, I think I should just start. So starting with introducing myself, guys, I probably be the first face you'll be seeing here in past years of webinars and the podcast sessions that we've been doing from last 2 years now. So I am Supriya and I handle the marketing at Neurosensum. And with me, I've got two very known faces of Indonesian market. With one is Neurosensum CEO and founder, Mr. Rajiv Lamba, and we have the head of strategy and insights at Denon Aqua, Mr. Ashish Verma. So we'll talk about them later as well. So I see a very interesting backdrop for Mr. Ashish Verma. Ashish, if I'm not wrong, this place is Leh, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's where I was last week.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Leh has been my dream destination from, I don't know, I have no count of the years. So I would just like the audience to come in and maybe they can, if they can just tell, if they can mention the chat box, what have their dream destination been? Any place that you guys have been wanting to visit or attend from past many years? Yeah, the chat box is open. You can mention in your answer. So Leh has definitely been my dream destination from past many years. I don't know, it is a very beautiful place in India. I think maybe Ashish can tell us a little bit more about Leh.
Sure. So I actually came out of Jakarta last month, and I must say that I'm stuck here because the flights are not operational, and some of my annual leaves were available. So I just made the best use of it and went to my dream destination, which is Leh. Leh is in the northern tip of India, and this place is known for the movie which was shot there, Three Idiots, which I think many of you would know about.
Yeah.
But this place is more than the movie. It is full of barren lands, snow-covered mountains, and real natural scenic beauty. I would say that it can be compared to one of the best places on the planet. So it was there in my list. It's a tough place. It's very high on the altitude. It's about 14,000 feet above the sea level. So
Wow.
it needs, there's less oxygen. If you walk more, you feel like, you have done a hard work. So it's a tough place to be in. You have to acclimatize, but that's a fun about these things. So I really loved being there, and I was back 2 days ago. Today is my last day of the annual leave, and that's where this webinar is. So I'm very glad to be here.
Wow. It's nice. I see I see Ruchita mentioning New Zealand. Has any one of you been to New Zealand? Ajiv, Ashish, anything? Have you guys been to New Zealand before?
Not me, not as of now. It's in my to-do list. So the, so the moment things do open up, that's the first country I want to travel to.
Yeah, true.
Okay. I also see a lot of attendees raising hands. Just let us know in the chat box if you have any question. Okay, I think let's start with a brief introduction, a little bit about the experience of Mr. Ashish Verma, and then we can proceed with the webinar. So Ashish, handing it over to you. Just let us know. I mean, like, how has your journey been so far in the market research industry in Indonesia?
Okay. Sure. So it's been an extensive journey. I have around 15 years of experience, and I think I can see a lot of familiar names. So many of you would know me. So in Indonesia, I came here like 6 years ago, and I have worked in agencies for most of my career. So Kantar, Nielsen, I have worked there. and in different countries like India, Malaysia, Singapore, as well as now I'm currently in Indonesia from last 6 years. I came to Denon in 2018, so it's more than 3 years now. And in Denon, like you can see from the title, I had the strategy and insights for overall Denon beverage. There are two Denons, by the way. Denon has baby products, so to say, specialized nutrition products. Some of the major brands being SGM, etc. However, I take care of the beverage part. So beverages include water, which is the flagship brand of Indonesia, one of the most powerful brands of Indonesia, which is Aqua. We also have other water brand called Wit, and we have a few other sweetened beverages, I must say, and it's Maison, Levite. These are some of the other brands that we have. So most of my work is around consumer insights, reading the data from different institutions like Nielsen, Kantar panel, and doing ad hoc researches, etc. Neurosensum has been one of my very close associates from last 3.5 years, ever since I'm working with Denon, and a lot of ad hoc researches. I have been doing them. In fact, as I speak right now, there are 3 projects on the floor with Neurosensum. So yeah, it's a very good experience working for Indonesia market, and I've learned a lot in past 6 years being in Indonesia. It's a fabulous geography, huge consumer database that is generated through the clutters of ideologies, psychographics that we have in the country throughout. If you travel north to south or either ways. So yeah, that's all about me in nutshell. Supriya.
Yeah, thank you. I think Rajiv, shall we
so,
start the presentation? Yeah.
yeah, sure. Yeah. So first of all, I want to thank Ashish for being one of the speakers for today's event, and I want to thank everybody who has joined us for the event. I can see some very familiar faces today. So the discussion today is going to be very much about where is the market research heading. So it's not about only 2021, but it's about beyond that. So I'm going to present some slides to you, as well as we are going to have some very interesting discussion with Ashish about these facts. So what we did for this particular report, we interviewed more than 100 consumer insights leaders across the region, including Indonesia. We wanted to ask them what are they doing right now, what are the new things that they're utilizing in their organizations, what are the new trends that they are seeing emerging in Southeast Asia and market research. And these are some of the 4 trends that we see, and these are some of the 4 trends we're going to talk about today in our webinar. The first trend is a transition to online research. Let's deep dive into this trend. So transition to online research doesn't mean people have stopped doing offline research. What it means that companies are looking at online research as an additional methodology. And because of the COVID condition, we know that face-to-face hasn't been that easy in terms of the methodology or fieldwork. So recently, in the last 1.5 years, clients have looked at online research. Singapore has always been a very online methodology as a research methodology. But what we see in Southeast Asia, more clients are open to online research. In fact, in this particular survey that we did, 85% clients, they said that they're planning to do online research in the next 3 months, which is very, very interesting fact. We all know that we were talking about online research for years and years, but it's good to see that clients are getting more confidence on doing online research. Of course, panel have become better, not to the level that it could have gone to, but it's interesting to see this particular trend that clients are becoming more open to do online research. And when we ask these consumer insights team members or our clients, I mentioned that we have interviewed more than 100 clients or 100 consumer insights people. So some of the top trends that they talk about, why are they utilizing online research methodology? Of course, more consumers are online. We know that digital is the future, right? Everybody's online. People are on social media, they're on TikTok, you name it. Consumers are online. Second, online gives more global reach, especially when you want to do multiple geographies within Southeast Asia or outside. At times, doing a face-to-face research is not that easy to do. So reach is much bigger, much global. Third is much more affordable. Of course, the incentive that we have to pay to the respondents are relatively lower. That makes the overall research more affordable. It makes the research more real-time. What I mean by that, in a face-to-face environment, you have to wait for the face-to-face fieldwork to finish. But with online, you can see the data real-time nowadays. You don't even have to wait for weeks and months. You can see it live while the fieldwork is happening. So these are some of the trends that we saw emerging. And because a lot of these respondents, they get points or they get rewards, and because nowadays consumers are online, of course the response rates tends to be much higher versus the face-to-face methodology. Because they are a part of the panel, they've already accepted that they're going to reply to a survey because they're going to get rewarded. And it's not about quantitative online research. This is very, very interesting. I never thought in the last 2 years that online qualitative research will also boom. But even within Neurosensum, I saw us getting so many online FGDs requests that even I was very surprised that, quantitative, we always talked about quantitative online. But recently, clients have been relatively more open to online FGDs or online IDIs, which is also very, very interesting. So what we did as a company, we knew that this trend is coming. So particularly for Indonesia, we created a panel as big as 2 million panelists. Some of that belongs to our own panel, but we also collaborate with the online panel companies. And this particular panel size represents top 40 cities in Indonesia. It doesn't represent suburbs. It doesn't represent rural. It only represents the urban cities. So out of those top 40 cities, you can definitely read the top tier cities by even at a city level. If you want to read by cities, you can read the top 15 cities like Jakarta, Bodetabek, Bandung, Surabaya. You can read at a city level. Of course, this panel is still limited from a perspective that it doesn't cover SES-DNE. That is the plan that we have for the future, which is also to cover lower SES of the particular pyramid of the consumers. So it definitely covers ABC, which covers more than 70% of the population. But DNE is something that we plan to cover in the future. Now, having said that, I want to pose some questions to Ashish. So Ashish, we are seeing these trends emerging. I wanted to ask you, are you guys using online research in Danone?
Yeah, we have been using online research in the past as well, but I must confess that with the pandemic coming into the picture last year, we have increased the usage of online research, and the reasons were very well mentioned in your previous slide that you talked about. It is fast, it is easy. Offline was difficult, so it kind of gave us an opportunity to try our hands in increasing the volume of online research.
Great. And how about online qualitative? Is it only quantitative that you also did qualitative too?
Uh, Qualitative, I would say I moved to 100% online. And the reason being, none of the agencies, including yourself, was ready to do a call, because call needs a lot of people to come in one room and have an FGD face to face. So this was never advisable. It was never possible to to basically make that happen during the pandemic. So we moved to qualitative 100%, and I must say that I had objections in the beginning, because it was difficult to basically control or moderate six people sitting in six different rooms in their houses, basically in a setting which is very informal. And I had objections in the way interviews were conducted, but I think after one or two semi unsuccessful attempts, I think the agencies also learned, and even the respondents started to adjust, like they will close the room and shut themselves for about 1.5 hours. So they started cooperating as well, and I started seeing changes. And now I would probably say that for qualitative, if I'm ever not asked to move to offline, I would be okay with it. I'm so comfortable with online when it comes to call. However, for quant, I would say there is still possibility of knocking the door and doing the random surveys. And we, like in Indonesia in particular, people are more talkative when they are face to face. So, and that's what we need. We want them to talk. We want them to express. So I would say that for offline and online for quant, I would say a 50-50 composition right now for Denon.
Fantastic. Very, very heartening to see that, Ashish, that you guys are looking at these. I'll not say newer form of methodologies. It has been there for years,
Yeah.
but now possibly the penetration has gone up. But do you see a big benefit moving from offline? I'll not say moving from offline to online. It's more like a hybrid methodology. But did you really see a benefit of using online?
Uh, I would say yes and no. Again, and in the beginning, I I introduced myself as representing the brands which are very commoditized, and I talked about brand Aqua, which any Indonesian would know. I talked about brand Wet, MyZone. Now these are consumed by SESA until SESE, and it is consumed in the small towns as well, and it is consumed in the in rural as well. And I, as a matter of fact, include these small towns in lower SES in my researches. So what I figured out was whenever I have anything which has to do with consumption and attitude related, I would miss on those demographics, because in the previous slide you were just talking about that your plan is to expand to DE. However, it doesn't exist right now. And even in the quality of SES A, B, C, if I talk about, sometimes I meet, see, SES A is a definition which comes from Kantar or Nielsen, and it is very wide. Anybody who is earning more than or spending more than 8 million rupiah per month is an SES A. So anybody who's spending as 8 million is also SES A. Anybody who's spending 80 million is also SES A. So in online, I get more, this side of the spectrum where the SESAs are more creamy. So I kind of see that sometimes in my researches, I am not representing the entire Indonesia. So I still have a hybrid approach where I do my lower SES or certain numbers. Again, it's a science, so I won't get into details. But what I can say is that I do a hybrid methodology where I cover what I don't get from online through offline. So that is working well for Denon point of view. But if I were to talk about many other researches that I do, like where I just need to do a dipstick, I need to understand a trend. These are the things where online is fine. I have no issues with online quant uh, for those. So it's very horses for courses kind of approach. I need to really understand the objective my brand team is asking me for, or my sales team is asking me for. And based on that, I decide whether it would be a pure online, pure offline, or a hybrid. I would say the division right now is 50% offline quant, and hybrid are about 30%, and 20% pure online I do for
Fantastic.
Denon.
Great. And Ashish, you did talk about the challenges of SESD and E representation. Beyond that particular challenge, is there any other challenge with the online research that you've faced?
I don't see any challenges, Rajiv, besides representation of the demographics. I don't see. In fact, if you talk about beyond representation of demographics, I can only think about benefits. And it was very well explained in the previous slide about time benefits, about about the price, uh, and I can hear the echo, I guess. Yeah, it's good now. So yeah, I think there are more benefits of online research. It's just that it should suit the research need or the objective that I have to answer through that particular research. So
Right.
yeah, no challenges apart from this thing.
Which is great because when I talk to the clients in Indonesia, I think still there's some worries about the quality of the panel, about how confident we are that it is representing as well as offline. How can we ensure that the quality of the panel is good enough? There's not cheating happening. But I think it's very good to hear what you're saying, Ashish. In fact, the kind of projects that I have done. To tell you very honestly, I feel more confident with online nowadays in terms of the quality of the data. Of course, with relatively limited demographic representation versus offline. There are far better checks that we can do in online, including the entire automation, straight line checking, and so on and so forth. Now, I think I do encourage people who are there in the in the group today who are attending to try more online methodologies?
Rajiv, one suggestion I have. I don't call it a challenge right now, because I see there is a solution to it. Uh, and that suggestion is to all the agencies, including yours, is a lot of time when I do online researches, the safeguarding of respondents' identity is to a great extent. I mean, maybe it is not needed to that great extent. And what I mean is, when I do offline researches, I sometimes do callbacks, or maybe from that online. My style of working is when I meet 500 people face to face for a quant research, and I see there is a certain group, let's say 30 people, saying something about my product or about something which is kind of I want to explore more, which is very interesting. So I go and call back those 25 people and ask them specific reasons, and I pay the agency extra for calling them back. But unfortunately, so far, the safeguarding of data or the identity of online respondents is so much that this callback is not able to done. I mean, we can't get their numbers. We don't have access. Even the agencies don't advocate that. So I think that is something that we need to come up with, and also it will increase the what do you call, the faith, the trust in online researches for a lot of clients, including us.
I think it's a good feedback, Ashish. I think also the difference here is it being a syndicated panel which is used across clients versus a customized respondent which is recruited only for offline methodology. I think that can be one of the reasons that I can think about. I think, but thanks for the perspective, Ashish. It's a very, very good feedback for all of us to consider for the future. So I'll move to the next slide.
Yeah.
Supri, did you want to? I think I can see a question that you possibly
Yeah.
can ask here.
Yes, yes. So one of the questions that I had, I received it from Ruchita. I don't think she is online right now, but this is for the Indian like Indian market, but I think it holds equally important for Indonesian market as well. So the question is, in India, how to reach out to the audience who is not so digital savvy? This is the challenge that we are facing, to reach out to higher aged consumers, like 45 plus years of age, right? So I think Ruchita is looking up for an answer from Ashish, Rajiv. Any one of you can, just put in your insights into it.
Ashish, do you want to take that question, or shall I go ahead?
Sorry, what's the question? This is a challenge.
The question is how to reach out to audience which is not so digital savvy, right? So all those consumers who are like 45 to 50 plus, I mean, like age of years. So how shall people reach out to them, or how shall brands reach out to them?
Yeah, I think if this question is about how to reach out to them for survey purpose, right?
Yeah,
How to
for
get the
online.
survey.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is where the hybrid approach can happen. And one of the recent projects that I did is probably what I did was I wanted to safeguard my respondents. I didn't want them to come to a CLT. It was a CLT product because a particular beverage was to be consumed and given a response to. So what I did was I let my interviewer go to the house and give their own cell phones to the person, right? And so it costed me a little bit extra, but there was no other choice. So I gave them my gadget, and then the answering the question was actually attended to remotely to that guy. So that person was taught while the answers were taken, and it was a short survey, like 10, 12 questions. So it was done very nicely. We didn't get any hiccups. However, if the question is very lengthy, like a brand health tracker or a UNA, then I think that is a challenge that remains, because you cannot educate them. I would rather say to recruit someone who is put a filter. I mean, if someone who is using a mobile phone from last 3 years, only go to those 45 year plus, rather than giving a chance to spoil your research, I would say.
Correct, correct. Thank you so much for your input, Ashish. I have another question by Linda, and this question is to Rajiv. How high response rate is usually considered good for the online market research?
See, again, I think when you say high, it's all relative. Normally with the online panel, if the response rate is 70-80%, that's too high. It means everybody's participating. for whatever reason. Normally, in online research, anything around 15 to 20% response rate is considered decent, which means your panel is well represented. So when I say high, it's relatively to offline. So when we're offline, we're trying to recruit people, even with the methodology, the response rate can be at times 5 to 10%. So from that context, it's higher, but anything above 20% is something that we don't recommend.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And there's another question to I posed to both Ashish and Rajiv. So again from Linda, and she says that I heard that online qualitative research, which is FGD IDI, is longer compared. I mean, just is longer compared to the offline. Do you see the same thing in regard with the length of interview for online call? I'll repeat the question. So she said that I've heard that online call research is longer compared to offline. Do you see the same thing in regard with the length of interview for the online call?
No. I don't see, if your moderator is smart and if he has enough experience of doing, I don't see any differences in online and offline. The only thing is sometimes agency do tell me that instead of having 6 people in an FGD, let's have 4 or 5 because it's easier to control lesser number of people. And I had my reservations, like I said before in the beginning. Why should I let go of 2 respondents? But then I realized that controlling 4 respondents is easier, and I'm not missing on anything, any information that would additional 2 would give. So the answer to the question is I don't see any change in length of interviews, unless and until there's a problem with the Wi-Fi or the technical glitch, if that happens.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. So, okay, I have this another question from Jeremiah. In terms of product testing before pandemic, we could do offline research using centralized testing method. During the pandemic, it's not possible. Is there any other way to minimize the cost while still keeping the data integrity? Online research tend to have higher cost and couldn't capture higher number of panelists. A panelist, I think she means respondents.
Yeah.
You guys can also see the Q&A in the box,
Yeah,
right?
so basically, in my experience, I did not do CLT. I still don't. And even if the agencies are now offering me, I won't do it because it's for the safety of people, my side as well as the respondents. And how we have done is, yes, we have spent around 10-15% extra by placing the products in consumers' house and then talking to them online. But yeah, this is the cost that we pay at this time. And I would say that at least Zenon is ready to pay that 10% extra for the cause of our safety of respondents. So I would say that there is no solution to that. CLT is a no-no for me right now.
Okay, thank you. And then I've got another question from Rafi. What platform does Neurosensum use for conducting online qualitative FGD?
Yeah, so there are a couple of platforms. Of course, for online FGDs, you can use various platforms. You can make it as simple as using Zoom, or you can take some external platforms, another platform like Focus Vision, for example. Relatively much more expensive, but if you want a very cheaper one, you can use Google Meet, you can use Zoom. I think they work to a large extent, but might not be as sophisticated as the likes of some other platforms.
Okay, so getting a lot of questions, guys. So another one from Alia. Hi, I have a question from online research. How do the team manage the quality of the honest answer from respondent?
How do the team manage the quality of the honest answer? Meaning that we should delete that? No, I'm just kidding. So by that, if you mean that, how do we take out an answer which is not honest enough? Okay. Now there are various methods, right? One is the amount of time people that they're doing while clicking a response, the straight line checks. So there are 3 or 4 methods that normally people they do, which is to see whether are you clicking 4 all the way. If you are, then possibly if you're doing consistently across questions, you will be disqualified, or that data will be taken out. And second is the time of the response.
Yeah, time of the response and time of the response taken, and also the time in the clock. Like sometimes you have answers coming at 3 a.m. in the morning, or those odd hours when people don't. So I think you can check that as well. Another very interesting thing which is recently pitched to me by an agency is they also check the vibration in the device when people when they use any handheld device. If there is a vibration in the device, like if the phone is shaking, etc., you can say it's a human. However, when it's a bot, it will be very stationary. It will not move. So they also have this sense, they call it some sense booster technology, where they can make sure that the device is shaking and shaking enough to be qualified as a human is actually giving the response, not a bot. So that's an additional one that I've recently heard. I haven't tested it though.
Interesting. So Supresh, shall we go to the poll and take the
Okay,
questions in the next section?
yeah, there are a lot of questions. So all these questions will be answered. We'll reach out to you guys via email, and all these answers, I'll make sure that I do it. Okay, so I think considering the time, I think let's move ahead. We have an audience poll, I think, coming up.
Supresh, are you launching it or shall I launch it?
Yeah, I'm launching it, Rajiv.
All right.
So a quick poll for the audience. What kind of research have you guys done online? So I hope you guys can see the poll. Yeah, so your options are I haven't tried, or if you have tried, what kind of research have you been doing online? Great, I see the answers coming in. Perfect. I see a lot of people who already tried online research, but still there are a section of people who have not tried it yet. And I hope probably after the webinar, they'll be willing to give it a try at least once. Okay, I think I'll just end the poll now. Maybe in next 3 seconds. Guys, please fill in your answers. Okay. Shall I share the results?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Great. See a lot of people who already tried concept test for online research. Any like insights or any words on this, Rajiv, Ashish?
I think your data perfectly matches. 15% haven't tried, and this is what you were showing in the very first
Yeah.
slide, that 15%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. So people are looking at doing quick checks in the online research, might be a quick concept, quick consumer trend. Pricing possibly needs to pick up, and sometimes pricing research can take a bit more time, especially conjoint and so kind of other methodologies. But some very, very interesting trends that we can see here.
Yeah, I'm surprised about the usage and attitude coming at 33% saying that, which is top three, I guess. And the reason is usage and attitude is a pretty long research. And,
Yeah,
I remember 5 years ago, it was almost impossible to conceive or think about online researchers taking up as big as a UNA task. And good to see that people are already using it now.
right.
Right. So let's move ahead.
Yeah.
I think let's move to our second trend.
Sure, thanks. So second trend is another very interesting trend which is happening around the world. I do see Indonesia also picking up, which is the growth of DIY survey platforms. So DIY is do it yourself. So rather than going to an agency, you want a quick survey, you want a quick feedback, and sometimes you cannot afford the money. That's why people are using DIY platforms. And this is how the market is shaping up. And this is data from SMR. And it's very, very clear that people are moving towards DIY platform. I'll not say they're moving towards, they're adding DIY platform in their kitty. So there's a clear growth of DIY platforms, survey platforms. And this is what some of the clients that we interviewed are talking about, which is, they're conducting more research in-house by using these survey platforms, and they're willing to conduct more research in-house by using these platforms. That doesn't mean that this replaces the conventional research. Possibly a lot of areas where people were using their gut feel. Now there's a good survey platform which is intuitive enough to help them. And these are some of the reasons people are talking about why to use DIY survey platform. Of course, real time, live dashboards, omni-channel. So rather than just sending an email, you can send WhatsApp nowadays, you can send SMS, you can send it on your social media, you can integrate with Instagram, Facebook. Brings value for money. We do have qualified researchers in-house at times at the client side. Why not utilize that particular service? And one platform where you can do customer satisfaction, brand tracking, as well as employee research. Now, looking at this trend, what we guys did, we launched one more brand called Survey Sensor, which also has the DIY capabilities. So using our platform, it's another brand within our portfolio where you can launch a survey, you can create a survey, you can share the survey across channels, which means take the API, integrate across channels. So people, they come to a chatbot, a survey can go in. If you have the database of the customer, you can upload, you can send WhatsApp, you can send SMS, you can send emails. And the moment respondent replies, you can see the live results. You don't have to wait for weeks and months. So now these DIY platforms like Survey Sensor, for example, are very, very intuitive enough. They give you results at a much affordable price. Of course, it's not a consulting, it's more like a survey platform for which many times you can't go to an agency, like Neurosensum. You want a quick result, look at the platforms like Survey Sensor. What you can do quick surveys right from a customer satisfaction to employee satisfaction to market research surveys like brand tracking, packaging. You can do all of that. You can upload an image, you can upload an ad. So I think talking about that, Ashish, have you guys used any DIY platforms in Danone?
Yeah, we have used DIY platforms. We have my team basically trained to use DIY platforms. But again, there are occasions where we use them, and then there are occasions we don't use them. So it all depends on the cases.
Right. And what particular areas do you have used it, and what is the reason of using them, Ashish?
I think you answered it when you were explaining, and I love the way you said that it is not replacing the conventional research, and that's the case with Danone. It is not replacing anything that we do with agencies. However, it is replacing any gut feel that you would have, any quick answers that you would like to know. For example, I will give you a live example which happened to me in one of the 2-day workshop at Danone a couple of months ago. On day one, we were just discussing about different researches that I demonstrated, and people started asking me a lot of questions. A lot of questions were answered through the existing pieces of research that I had. And day two is when they were supposed to go and basically use those insights and build concepts and products and demonstrate them. So what I did was I answered them comprehensively. However, there were few small questions which were not answered. So right after that day one, I launched a DIY survey at 6 o'clock in the evening, and by 9 a.m. in the morning next day, which is day two of my workshop, I have all the answers, right? So I could answer, I can plug the gaps which was there on day one, and day two was a perfect day to start building the concepts for the team. So that these are the areas, where I need quick answers. I don't want to go by the gut. I want some data, if not comprehensive data. These are the areas when we use DIY.
Fantastic. So I'm sure companies like Danone, you might be having a big CRM database inside your company, or of course you have the social media platforms. So are you also utilizing that data? For example, utilizing that data to put into the DIY platform and sending surveys, or integrating a DIY platform with your social media channels. Are you guys doing that inside?
Yeah, we are doing it, but not to the extent that I would like it to, because I have a lean team, and usually at client side there are not many people. You would know that. So that's the reason we work with agencies, right? We multiply our hands.
Yeah.
However, with the lean structure of my team right now, I am not doing it to my liking. But answer is yes, we are, but it is not done comprehensively, and I'm building on that. I'm building on some of the dashboards, DIY dashboards, so that brand teams don't ask me questions. They can automatically go log in and work on it themselves and find the answers. That's how we can then focus on our quality time the insights team quality time can be focused on generating insights rather than extracting data.
All right. So I think we did talk about benefits of
Yeah.
DIY. Do you want to add something else, Ashish, or shall I skip this?
I think I would just re-emphasize at client side, there are two things which you can do. You can extract the data and give it to the brand team, or you can let them extract the data and you just cover it up with meaningful insights, because sometimes brand teams don't know how to use the data. So, and if I expect my team to do both the jobs, which is extracting the data and then, converting them into insights, it's too much of an ask for them, right? And they might slog late nights. So if DIY platforms can let the brand team extract the data, my team can actually focus on insight generation and understanding, and it will be a huge push to the quality of insights that we will generate. So that
Great.
is one of the benefits.
Yeah. And of course, I do see when I compare Singapore versus Indonesia from a penetration perspective, I do see a DIY platform almost in every large enterprise in Singapore. Indonesia penetration is still small, but it's picking up. What are the challenges that you feel, Ashish, are there for DIY platform?
I think, see, DIY brings, still the work needs to be done by me. That means DIY means my team has to do it, right? So one way is that I educate my brand teams and the other team members in marketing so that they start doing DIY. But currently their understanding about the data and everything is limited. So that's something that we are working on at Denon. We are trying to train the junior members. However, the challenge is that I have a 5 people team right now, and there is a lot of research, a lot of stuff is already on their plate. If I keep on adding the DIY to their plate, it will only make their life difficult. So I am still outsourcing as much as I can through the agencies. But I have, like I said, I have started DIY as well, not to my liking as I would like it to be. So I will be using it extensively in the times to come. And that's the capability I'm building right now.
Sure. Thanks, Ashish. Supriya, any particular question that you want to ask Ashish? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on mute. I have a question. What kind of surveys can be done on these platforms? Can we do a quick pack or campaign test on DIY survey platform?
Yeah, I think, of course, me running Service and so I'll talk about Service and some more in the order of promoting Service and some to you all. So of course, on a platform, you can do any kind of surveys in any languages that you want. Be it concept test, fact test. You can upload an image, you can upload an ad, you can do satisfaction NPS, you can do brand tracking. You can create your own survey, or you can also use the templates because there are already predefined templates into the platforms. In case you don't want to create a survey, you already want to create a template which Service and some team has created, you can use those platforms, or you can use those templates directly. So in a nutshell, you can create any kind of survey that you want to create, and platform is very adaptable for that.
Great. Thank you, Rajiv. Audience, you can just type in your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A section. So I have another question from Risky. Is DIY survey perfect for agile market research?
Ashish, do you want to take that before I answer it?
I mean, DIY means agile. So yes, it is. DIY is agile. This is a synonym to DIY, I would say. If you want anything fast, like I gave the example of my 2-day workshop, how I generated the insights or the data answers to the questions which were asked on day 1 and presented to the audience within the span of 12 hours, right? So this is the best example of being agile. So the answer is yes, DIY is agile.
Great. So Rajiv, I have a question for you. Like, what do you think is the future of DIY platforms according to you?
See, as I mentioned, I think I definitely see penetrations going up. It will never replace consulting. Consulting is still very much there in the game. But what I normally see from the time that we have launched Service and some, what I've realized that clients were doing a lot of decision making based on gut feel, or they were just talking between 3 or 4 people and they were taking a decision. That which celebrity to use, you cannot go to a consulting company to do a complete celebrity research. You will not spend $10,000 to understand. I've got 4 celebrities, which one to go ahead with. Now there's so many questions that people have, but sometimes they don't have an answer for those questions, and that's where DIY platforms they come in, which is get me real time, get me fast, get me cheap, get me now. I think, and I do see a lot more clients using the DIY platforms in the future.
Great, great. So when did this idea of building Survey Sensor first came to your mind?
2018, when we started Neurosensor, and when we were going to the clients, of course they were happy with Neurosensor service, but again the same question came in: can we have a localized version of a survey platform where we can read the open-ended text? But if I cannot afford a consulting, can I do it myself? If I can afford a consulting, I can go to Neurosensor. But if you can't afford a consulting, can I have an intuitive platform which has an AI element? AI element comes in the text and sentiment analysis. So, for example, when you ask a question, "Kanapa suka, kanapatida suka," our platform can analyze that open data real time. You don't have to even tag it manually. That's how the entire NLP engine works. And that's how this entire concept got originated in 2018, and then it picked up the shape over time.
Okay, thank you, Raj. I think let's move ahead.
Sure. Shall we go to the second poll?
Yeah. So for the audience, are you using any DIY platform for consumer research? So it's a poll I'm launching. Just let us know your answers. Have you been using it for smaller research objectives or full-scale research, or you've not used it at all? Okay, I see answers coming in. Waiting for next maybe 10 seconds. Great, so I'll just share the results. See a lot of people who are yet not using the DIY platforms, but a lot of them have already, see 36% of them have been using it for smaller research objectives. So Rajiv, Ashish, your take on this?
So this is exactly what I was talking about. If you were to ask this question in Singapore, for example, or in US or Europe, you would have got this number up to 90%, which means 90% of the people are using DIY platforms because every time they cannot go to an agency to get an answer, and sometimes they need to respond very fast. Which pricing to go ahead? You've got, or which you want to run a promotion on Lazada or Shopee. You've got 5 options of promotions. You want a very quick response overnight, like the way what Ashish mentioned. So these percentages do vary by countries, but I think that's where I believe the future will move towards. Ashish, your take?
Yeah. No, I totally agree to you. I think see, it's a cycle. The first thing is the belief on online research needs to come 100%, and then follows the DIY. So once the country, or Indonesia in particular, has full faith on online, I think DIY will also get a push, because I can see a lot of benefits, and one of the biggest benefit which any client would love to have is the cost. So the moment you remove a little bit of cost, you can do more researches. So I think there are more benefits in future.
Great.
Great.
I have another question. Can I reach the target audience I want, also the competition? I think in terms of DIY platform, I think this question is for Rajiv.
Yeah, you can, because within these platforms, we have also integrated the online panel. So in case you cannot use your database, you want to use our panel, you can also use the panel. So you can either use our online panel or you can use your own database. If you're using our online panel, of course, we can help you to filter based on what target audience you want.
Right, so there's this one last question that we'll take up before moving to the next trend. So this question is to Ashish. When you do hybrid survey, do you apply weighting factor for the result?
Yes, that's a very good question, I would say, and I do apply that. And that's the way. I mean, that's the reason we have done 2 parallel surveys, offline and online, for about 2 months, and we figured out the right weight. That if certain people say X, certain people give X percentage to a certain answer. We ask the same question in online and offline as well, and then we figure out the weighting. And when we have more than 10, 20 questions, we can actually figure out which weighting would be the best. So weighting is applied for sure. It's at most needed.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. I hope Parsh this answers it. And also, Parsh has posed another question to Rajiv. One of the challenges about DIY platform is about the sampling frame, that is the respondents database. How do we work on this?
So respondent database, as I mentioned, if you want to reach to a particular profile of consumers, you can use our online panel. That's relatively simpler. Or you can use your own database. But for your own database, you need to have the database, for which I'm assuming you might have the database either in a CRM system. I don't know whether your company has implemented those kind of platforms. If you have the CRM database internally, what you can do, you can just take the API. Your IT team can do that. They can help you to take our API and integrate that with the CRM system, which means in your CRM databases, CRM platforms are like Salesforce, HubSpot, SAP. You can look at the database and you can easily filter it, which means you can easily run a survey on your own database, and the moment response comes from that, you can see the results live on the platform. Yeah, but if you don't have the database, of course, you want to use an online panel, you can.
Okay, thank you, Rajiv. I think let's move ahead.
Cool. So let's go to trend number 3, which is the future of marketing. We all know that as consumers, we believe that we take decision at conscious level, but a lot of decision happens at subconscious level. And I think that's what we talk as neuromarketing. So this is something that clients have told us. This is the percentage clients which are using the neuromarketing or neuro tools right now for their research. Biggest is eye tracking, facial expressions, and EEG are the top 3 tools which are getting used, and people, they believe this is going to go as a trend in the future. Can I read the subconscious mind of consumer using these neuro tools? So Ashish, having said that, neuroscience has been there for ages now, right? It's been possibly more than 7-8 years, easily in Indonesia or around in the region. Have you guys used neuroscience tools for your research?
Yeah, we have used it extensively, I would say. In fact, all our ad checks are done based on facial recognition, which is one of the most common use of neuroscience. Besides that, there are many other interesting researches that I have done, including a few with your agency as well, I would say. So yes, we are using it extensively now.
And Ashish, what has been your experience of using neuroscience research? I mean, did you get anything which is different from what consumers are claiming?
Yeah, so see, the thing is that again, it's a transition, it's something new. So I would not blindly believe in what is coming through. So what I do is I ask, I have the neuro data on x-axis and I have the claim data on a y-axis, and I will then have the graph plotted on what neuro is claiming as well as the claims are going for. So that's how you get into the hybrid system. But my experience so far has been, I would say that it has helped. It has helped to shortlist. For example, one very simple tool, what we call it neuro, is the speed at which people answer. Sometimes when people are very sure, they answer it very fast, and the moment they think and they flicker, and that's where you can say that they are fabricating the answer or they are just sugarcoating. So and this happens in Indonesia extensively. Like I said, people are talkative. So this has definitely helped us, and we have now figured out the real differences in answers which used to come before. High ratings, everything is 90% plus, but the moment we apply neuro into it, the scores comes down a little bit, and we get more closer to the reality, I would say. So it's more behavioral and stuff like that. So quite happy with it.
Sure, thanks. I think what you were mentioning was more about like a implicit association testing, right?
As well, so it is also one
Yeah.
of the neuro. We also do facial recognition. We have also AI enabled neuro tools as well. We have done that for our ad testing, and also for the concept testing as well.
Great. So I think we did talk about that. Any particular challenges that you face while doing this neuro research?
Yeah, I think one challenge is which agencies are now saying that they have cracked it, but I still have doubts, is most of these tools are built outside of Indonesia. And when they are built outside of Indonesia, the capacity to recognize the facial expressions could be Americans or European, whereas Indonesians would have a very different, facial expression. So I still have doubts if someone would do a bro furrow, if someone would make their bro furrows in a certain way in Europe, if Indonesian would do the same. Uh, so to that, I would say that we need to have more Indonesian faces integrated into the model, and that would only increase or improve the efficiency from Indonesian context.
Great, thanks. Supriya, any questions for Ashish?
No, I think let's move ahead.
All right. So let's come to our last trend, and I think we are almost on time right now. So the fourth trend is what we call as an omni-channel text and sentiment analysis. What I mean by that, of course, we know that consumers are moving digital. They're writing a lot of things on apps. They're sending complaints on emails. They're writing on social media. They're writing on chatbots. And not every time we have to do consumer research, because we can still pick some of these trends which are on social media and different channels and understand a lot what consumers are talking about, be about our brand, be about our service. So this is where consumers are spending more time nowadays. Of course, WhatsApp, we know that, Instagram, YouTube. This is where Indonesians are spending a lot of their time when they go on digital. And TikTok, we know that TikTok has come in Indonesia, and we know that it's just going to rise further. But the idea is that how can I read these conversations real time? So one idea is to look at those conversations manually. Second is having a good AI engine where I can just put in this data and it just gives me the overall insights. That's what is called as text and sentiment analysis. And this is what this kind of tools they help in, which is to understand the complete unstructured data in a real-time manner. And this is what is really driving as a trend across the world, which is what we call as the NLP. And of course, what Service Sensum also did is to build the local NLPs, which is in Bahasa Indonesia, which can read slangs, which can read the local textual data. So Ashish, have you guys used any of these kind of tools in Danone?
Yeah, we do it quite regularly. So we scrape the internet and all the talks that are happening in social media. We try to get that and do the text and sentimental analysis. However, this is done on an ad hoc basis. It's not something that we get regularly. And my aim is to make it more regular, like the frequency of this kind of data coming every month. Currently, we do it when there is something happening. For example, there was a French boycott happening last year. That was a big bottleneck for us at places in many countries. It was, including Indonesia. That's when we did this extensively for about 2 months. We wanted to know any negative sentiments about Danone as a brand because it's a French company, and things like that. So we are still using it when there is a need, but we are not using it as a status quo or something that we would like to use it throughout, always on. Yeah, but yes, we do use it.
And is that only for social media conversations, or do you also look at the other conversations on other
Uh,
digital channels?
for now, there is one ad hoc project that I did about a year ago, which was very extensive. It looked into all the conversations, not just social media, but also in the magazines, also in different articles, as well as different conversations happening. So we did that, but we have not regularized that. Something that we do more often is social media only.
Okay. Again, same question. Any challenges that you face while using these platforms?
I think my biggest challenge was Denon. Again, this is only limited to people who are very chatty and who have an expression, who are very smart, who can go and express out there in social media. But I don't get to see a lot of people who are not that smart but still consume my water, right? So if I have to do something for my brand's sake, like what people do for my brand, I don't get enough volumes because it's a commoditized product. I don't see.
Right.
However, when I need to see something like the French boycott is a phenomenon. It's something which is happening, and I need to know that I need to take a dipstick. For that, it benefits. But for my product sake, it doesn't give me enough volumes. Another thing which I think now most of the agencies have overcome, but I had my reservations in the beginning when it started, was the slangs. Indonesia, like we know, there are huge slangs which are used in Indonesia. So sometimes the text analytics may not be able to recognize, but I was given to understand by you a month ago when we had this demo. You said that now the tool is smart enough that it understands the slangs and it very nicely declutters all of them. So if that has been done, then I would say that it's a good revelation.
Great. So we are going to go to our last poll. Of course, that is more for me to understand whether you want to know more about Service System platform. As I mentioned that you can use the Service System platform as a DIY platform. Or if you want us to do online panel research for you, we can help you out with that. Or you can also do text and sentiment analysis, something like what Ashish mentioned using the platform.
Okay,
So Supriya, can we
Ravi,
just launch the poll?
yeah, just before launching the poll, there's one question that like what kind of analysis does, like what kinds of insights does text and sentiment analysis provide, and about the language barrier, like English, Bahasa? So is it possible to do in multiple languages?
So I think I leave the insights part possibly to Ashish. Of course, I can talk about the first one, but being Ashish being there, I'll leave the first question to him. Now, second is whether it can do whether it's a multilinguistic tool. A lot of platforms are not. I think we design Service Sensor because we are an Indonesian-based company, so we design mainly for the local NLP. Apart from English, English is relatively easy to do, but our key focus was to get Bahasa Indonesia right, and that's where we spend a lot of time and effort. And that's where we can completely differentiate against a US-based platform, which are very, very good in English, but they don't work in the local languages. Ashit, do you want to take the first question about insights?
Yeah, I would say that from the insights point of view, it's huge because everything which is, see, these days, things becoming viral on internet, right? So everybody wants to ride the wave. We call it trend jacking. So anything that you probably see on internet happening and you include that uh, in your ads or in the way you communicate, which could be a very popular slang which is used in the internet right now. And if this text analytics is able to give you that 80% of volume right now which is happening on X channel, let's say Twitter, is all about a certain topic, and it uses a particular slang which could be anything, then I think this is a huge indication to your marketing team in terms of insights that you can use that slang, you can use that gesture, you can use that facial expression or anything that they say in your ads, in your communication, to get more close to establish that connection with the audience out there. So I would say it's a very nice way to get the behavioral thing out. And you are not asking any questions to consumers. So they are not thinking, they are not giving you well thought of answers. There is no fabricated stuff happening, no sugar coating happening. So it is just how you see the data go inside. That is why analytics is very important. If you crack the analytics part, you get the insight for sure.
Definitely, I agree. So I'm risky agreeing with you, Ashish. The best way to get Indonesian responses or attention is knowing the slangs or local words.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we have just launched the poll, the last poll. That's for more for us to understand in case you want to know about our platform. So in the meantime, is there any other question?
Yeah, I think that's it, Rajiv.
Sure. So Ashish, I think we are at the last end of the webinar. I really appreciate your time
Thank you.
and sharing some very, very interesting thoughts with us. I loved hosting this webinar and having this interesting conversation. Supriya, thanks a lot for moderating it. Love your enthusiasm while you were moderating it, and thanks for taking the questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you,
And thanks
everyone, and
everyone
thanks
for
to all the
attending it.
attendees. Yeah.
Thank you, each and everyone. And once again, all the questions unanswered will be answered via email, and the report will be shared to all the registrants. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day, everyone.
Yeah, bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. हेलो, फीडबैक। अयो, मेरे तो कमर में दर्द हो रहा है यार, बहुत तेज। हाँ, एब्सोल्युटली यार, वी हैव टू लर्न ना, 1 घंटे